We are now going to come to a really, really, really interesting session. AviaDev, what we want to do here is we want to uncover the gold. We want to find those routes that don't exist yet, but absolutely should. Now, 4 years ago at an AFRA conference, I met the next presenter, and we hatched a plan together to deliver the report that you are about to see. So you are the first people on the globe to see this report. We did this last year. This is the 3rd year of this report. It is the premiere that I know has used up many of this gentleman's evenings, but I know it's going to be 100% worth it. So, yeah, without further ado, please allow me to introduce Geert Lemaire, who is the Airbus's Market Intelligence and Consulting Director, to come up and take us through the report. Geert, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, John. Thank you very much for that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Geert Lemaire. I work in Airbus marketing department based in Toulouse in France. And actually, I'm a member of a team of about 15 people with both internal and external roles. The external role we do is to screen the market, to try to stay on top of trends in the market, to understand what is happening in the market, and to use these insights to work together with airlines in the development of their long-term strategies in terms of network development, route development, and then, of course, fleet development. So today I'm here following indeed a cooperation that we started doing a couple of years ago with AviaDev, and it's actually an honor for me to be back and to present you today parts of the 3rd issue of the Unserved Routes report that we prepared ahead of this conference. All right, so before I go into the presentation itself, I want to clarify, because I know there's some people who are really into numbers in this room, that the report is valid for a period from October 2024 to September 2025. The reason for that is that we need to have access to detailed data to do this report, and as such it takes a while before these detailed data become available. All right? This being said, the second thing I want to add is that we use external data. So this is not data that we make up ourselves. We basically buy Sabre data for everything that is traffic related, and we buy OAG data for everything which is schedules and capacity. All right? So this being said, the 3 reports are available on the airbus.com website. You can go to Airbus in Africa, and you will be able to find them there. Scroll down to the bottom of the page to find the old issues, and in the middle of the page you will find this report. I have a QR code at the end of the presentation as well, which you can scan to actually get access to it. All right. I brought the 321 XLR model, and it's on the runway, ready for takeoff. Those people who listened very carefully to John's speech yesterday evening heard that you could drop your business card in the bowl on our Airbus stand. So we'll do a lucky draw at the end of my presentation, and the lucky person who gets it, well, walks home with the 321 XLR model. Good. This being said, let's have a look at the top 10 unserved routes to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa, starting first with those to and from sub-Saharan Africa, where we see indeed no big change compared to last year, where Harare-London is still the top unserved route, where Mumbai to Johannesburg is the 2nd most important unserved route. Nothing changed there. But down in the list, we actually have quite a number of new unserved city pairs popping up, most important of which is Lagos to Guangzhou. Okay, so the traffic is significantly picking up. It's definitely a result of the post-COVID effect disappearing, and therefore, indeed, traffic picking up significantly. Nevertheless, there's a number of important unserved city pairs that actually move up in the list, like, for instance, Kinshasa to Dubai, which is quite an important one, honestly. There's significant growth in there. Cape Town, Brussels is back in there too. Now we really need to start doing something about that because this one is in there. Brussels is very close to my heart because I'm Belgian. Nevertheless, this connectivity there between Cape Town and Brussels is missing today, so I invite Paul and indeed Brussels Airlines, if they are in the room, to have a chat afterwards and go into details about it. Good. There's also a couple of unserved city pairs that disappear, of course, from the top 10. And most important one is NTB London. We mentioned that last year because the route got served with a non-stop flight from Uganda Airlines just before AviaDev conference. Lagos to New York is now served with a seasonal flight. And then Nairobi to Washington, actually traffic fell back to the levels where it were before because last year they had quite an important growth. Now we're definitely very happy to have the people, the delegation from Washington Airport with us today because we'll probably hear a bit more about it later on in Sean's panel. Good. Inside Africa, I am personally very amazed myself by Cape Town to Lagos. The traffic is exploding there. I'll show you more in detail afterwards in the presentation. We have 2 new routes in there, Abuja, Nairobi, Bamako, Brazzaville. And then Abidjan, Douala now is also served by Kenya Airways as a tag-in flight from the flight to Douala from Nairobi. So that is, there is some movements in the list. It's not overwhelming. It's not that it's entirely different. Nevertheless, if you dig deeper below the surface and you go look into what is happening on these city pairs, then you see that there's fierce competition happening between airlines. People are actually fighting to be in these markets. Of course, connecting traffic still via their hubs. If you read the report, you will find much more details on that in there. Good. Now, last year, in the AviaDev conference, I was presenting indeed the unserved route from Entebbe to London, which at that moment just got announced by Uganda Airlines to become a non-stop flight. And they launched it back in May, and the effect of which is visible in this chart. We're basically looking into the different bars, which each of them represent a month of non-directional OND traffic, going back from January 2023 to the latest data we have available, which was October 2025. Now, of course, we don't have the full year of data, but we can at least look into the data we already have available. And what do we see in there? Well, if you look into the green bars at the end, that's Uganda Airlines picking up traffic. They actually stimulate traffic significantly, and they also capture back a lot of connecting traffic on the OND. So in total, over the 5 months of period of 5 months that we have available, we arrive at about 9,500 non-directional passengers. If you compare that to the same periods the year before and 2 years before, then what we see is that we have an increase of about 3,000 passengers every month, which is a 50% increase in traffic. So without any doubt, the conclusion from there is that if you look into these bars, if you look into the trends, it's clear that when you open a non-stop flight, first of all, you capture back connecting traffic, but definitely you activate a lot of latent demand in the market, people that would never travel, that now take this non-stop flight. Good. It is important because we picked up that Air Zimbabwe is now going to launch Harare to London. Remember the very first, most important unserved route in the top 10? Well, they will launch a non-stop flight with the 330-200 from 1st July onwards. And John, if you allow me, I would be very happy to be back, of course, next year to show some more insights on that route. Thank you for the invitation, by the way. All right, let's get back to some serious stuff. Number of routes to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa, where we have a frequency of at least 3 flights per week. Why 3 flights a week? Because, well, if we consider people traveling a lot for work, you want flexibility, and that would be kind of seen as a minimum flexibility required to travel. Now, back in 2024, there were 717 of these routes, so flying to, from, or within sub-Saharan Africa, 3 times a week or more. Let's look what happens between or in the way to 2025. to see if that was growing, decreasing, just staying stable, or whatever. First of all, 12 new routes were opened with at least 3 frequencies per week in that region. 7 were closed. There were 68 routes that actually saw an increase to a frequency beyond 3 frequencies per week, but there were equally 62 that actually saw a frequency decrease, to end up with 728 routes in 2025. So that means a full year of route development in sub-Saharan Africa resulted into 11 extra routes with a frequency of minimum 3 flights per week. 11. All right? Guys, what are we doing here? Let's do something better than this. Let's be a little bit more ambitious, I would say, because 11 routes in this massive region is really nothing. All right? Good. Let's put things in context. So we have the 728 routes, sub-Saharan Africa, in 2025. For the whole continent of Africa, we have some 400 more routes, 400, 500 more routes. Compared to Latin America, we're about at the same level. So John, if you're thinking about launching another AviaDev event, that's the way to go, I would say. Good. Compared to Indian subcontinent and the Middle East, we're a bit higher. The regions are smaller, however. But watch this, guys. This is what we call connectivity. So I think we have quite some work ahead. And where we can immediately conclude, like, okay, sub-Saharan Africa definitely is underserved today, it also means that there is significant opportunity to make the business grow and to expand our networks. Right. What can we do about these expanding networks? Well, the positive news is we are in a business that is only growing. Indeed, I remember the speech from Daniel this morning where everything was negative and bad, etc. That's short term. If you look back into how traffic has developed from 1975 onwards to today, which is a statistic that I did not enter into the presentation because of time reasons, we see that traffic is only increasing. And indeed, yes, there is some noise on the curve for crisis left and right. Then there was, of course, the deep COVID crisis. But nevertheless, traffic today is back, all right? So that means that we are in a growing business, and if we project into the future, it will only grow further. So Airbus makes a global market forecast every year based on economic development of countries, population development, concentration of people in urban agglomerations, trade increasing, etc. I'm not going to enter further into details on how we do this, but the results for Africa in terms of major traffic flows, what we see is that for the next 20 years, we actually project a growth in many of these main traffic flows going beyond 5%. And I specifically mentioned this 5% because 5% means that traffic doubles in 15 years. All right? Now, if we see all these growth figures in there, and if we see that the majority is going beyond 5%, that means that we really need to plan for major traffic growth to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa. Now, air transport is a critical contributor to socio-economic development, which we, of course, all want to create in sub-Saharan Africa. So therefore, we have the task to develop route and networks. And with these figures in mind, I think everybody in this room has a very important job to do. All right? One specific message for fleet planners in the room. Please don't size your fleet for tomorrow, but think long term. Okay? Size the fleet and the capacity of your aircraft for this long-term growth, because we need to be prepared. We can't simply change fleets overnight. Good. We're going to have a look into our unserved city pairs, where we have for each of these unserved city pairs inside sub-Saharan Africa, 3 bars, which actually represent the 12-year periods of the 3 reports that I've made so far. And what we see indeed is that nearly each of these unserved routes have been growing significantly since we started doing so. So we see Cape Town, Lagos. Look at this, an average annual growth, because these are CAGRs, of 70% and more, all right? So that is significant. Maybe you say, yeah, it's an exception, but look at this. Bamako to Brazzaville, Dakar to Nairobi, they have double-digit growth figures. So that means, even if we have kind of slow movement in creation of new routes, the traffic behind is significantly growing. So that is a positive sign, and we really need to jump on that and believe in it for the future in order to expand networks. So all in all, 7 out of 8 evaluated routes so far have seen indeed growth in the 3-year period. I did the same for the routes to and from sub-Saharan Africa, where you also see many routes ending up with double-digit growth. So that is really promising, and we really need to take that into account and really think positively, rather than being restricted by fears in developing possibly new routes. Good. I brought these charts because they are really indicative for what the business is about. These are charts that show the growth for Kinshasa, Dubai, and Harare, Dubai, back from 2010 to today, to the latest figures we have available. Now look at this, and this is exactly the point I want to make, is that, of course, we know today's traffic, and we know what are the short-term opportunities, and if we focus too much on that without planning ahead and really being ambitious for future growth, long-term growth, then we may miss opportunities. Who, back in 2010, would have thought that Kinshasa, Dubai would grow like this today, right? The same for Harare to Dubai. Quite an interesting route. There's a lot about it in the report, so please feel free and have a look at it. Now look at this. Etihad said to us recently that it's time for Africa. Well, we do fully agree with that, all right? They will not fly to Dubai, of course not. They will do it from Abu Dhabi, but they will start serving both routes. And why can they do that? Because they planned ahead long term. They anticipated possible growth in the market. They have been aggressive. And look, they are in the position to take the opportunity when the traffic is picking up. There's more examples. Lagos to Toronto, Douala to Dubai, Cape Town to Brussels. Cape Town to Brussels, guys. Cape Town to Brussels. London, Zanzibar, all have the same profile. All right? So there's a lot to be done there. And we need to build long-term. Okay, yes, of course, we have the tactical planning. We need to move ahead. We need to make sure that tomorrow we survive, but we definitely have to project long-term into the future because the market is growing. So if we want to be part of it, we need to be prepared. Good. Now, what are we going to do then if we have to develop sub-Saharan Africa's network? Well, we can have a look at where the traffic is today. As you see on this chart, about a third is in domestic traffic, counting non-directional O&D passengers. 16% is traffic that flies beyond borders, but inside sub-Saharan Africa. And then about half of the traffic is going to and from sub-Saharan Africa. Now, all in all, this represented in the studied period about 88 million people, of which 14 million people approximately traveled within sub-Saharan Africa. Now you say like, okay, 14 million, wow, it's quite a big number. And therefore, I want to put these numbers in perspective. Look at this. If you go to Birmingham Airport and you read their website, how many passengers have they handled over 1 year quite recently? 14 million. Hamburg Airport in Europe, 14 million. Naples Airport in Italy, 14 million people. So that means that the traffic inside sub-Saharan Africa is, for this whole sub-region, the same number of passengers as handled by one single secondary airport in Europe. All right? I think we should be more ambitious than that too. No? So that's the second reason to really increase ambition. So yes, we need to bring people to and from sub-Saharan Africa, absolutely detrimental, but expanding the regional network is definitely paramount. Good. it's all great to talk about, we should have expand, but there are a couple of challenges. And what are these challenges? First of all, distance. Flying from Cape Town to Cairo is the same as flying from London to Beijing. It's a very long flight. Flying from the Dakar to the other side of Africa is actually the same as flying from Dublin to Vancouver. So it's a long distance as well. So distance definitely is a challenge. It's kind of the terror of sub-Saharan Africa or the entire African continent. Secondly, the traffic to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa is definitely prone to seasonality. That means that from these graphs, which actually show for the intra-regional traffic to and from the region and the domestic traffic, how does it evolve over the year on average? Well, what you see is that there's two peak periods, somewhere in the beginning of the year, somewhere towards the end of the year. And in between, airlines need to survive. Okay? So that's definitely a challenge. Last but not least, that's what we hear all the time when talking to airlines in Africa. Yeah, but the demand is not really there, and I don't see the opportunity, and voila, so therefore let's wait and see and do nothing. Good. We'll talk about that later on again. Now, there are challenges, but there are definitely also opportunities. And one of these opportunities is related to premium traffic. Why is it an opportunity? Let's have a look first at the global level, so worldwide. What is the split between premium and economy traffic? 4% premium traffic, so that includes first class, business class, and premium economy. Represents 4% of all people traveling only every year. The rest is economy traffic. Now, to put that in context, for sub-Saharan Africa, the split is slightly more advantageous for the premium traffic because we have 6% premium traffic. And you say, yeah, okay, it's 2% only, but 2% in this market is important. Moreover, when we look into the unserved city pairs, we don't talk about 6%, we talk about double-digit percentages. It's 10%, 40%, 16% on those routes listed here, all right? And why is it important? Because in order to make a route work, of course, the business needs to be profitable. Now, premium traffic actually fuels the revenues on your flight and are therefore a big differentiator. Nevertheless, African people who travel in premium class expect a physically different seat. They want comfort, and guess what? I'm a marketeer, I have to say this. You can find such comfort on the Airbus aircraft, of course. So winning premium traffic demands a real business class seat, a physically different business class seat. This being said, there's another opportunity. I'm not going to explain the whole chart, I just want you to look at the green line, because that represents how belly cargo inside sub-Saharan Africa has evolved or has developed over time. We go back to 2015, and what we see is that in the 10 years period of this graph, the belly cargo carried has doubled inside sub-Saharan Africa. All right? Why is that important? Exactly because it's another contributor to making the business case work. Because if indeed demand is low, and voila, if you hesitate, in Africa, roads, rail work, etc., is not the most developed in the world, so that is the opportunity. Try to capture belly cargo, and guess what? The Airbus aircraft are capable to carry this belly cargo. So belly cargo can give this extra boost to your business case and can make your business case work. Good. This chart, I think, is most important in the whole presentation, so I'll explain it a little bit in detail. And I see John watching back, I have 1 minute 30, I will slightly overrun, but I'm not the first one today. All right? Good. So what did we do here? We actually looked into all flights performed between July 2025 and June 2026, so as we are here, and with the planning information we have access to in OAG. And we actually listed all these routes in distance categories. So each time 250 nautical miles apart. So each bar represents the flights performed in percentage and the breakdown between regional, propeller aircraft, single aisle, wide-body aircraft, and then the very large aircraft towards the end of the graph. Now, what do we see in here? There's one particular zone that attracts attention, which is this one, where we have the category going from about 3,000 nautical miles up to 4,100, 4,200 nautical miles. Well, in this category, what we see is that nearly exclusively wide-body aircraft are dispatched. I didn't want to make the presentation too heavy, but what you see in there is that on all these routes that are in this category, or the majority of the routes in this category, we end up with frequencies of 2 or 3 flights per week. All right? So that means, yes, there are flights, but the connectivity is not optimized. Well, why do I bring this up? It's related to this model. It's because that is the category where the 321 XLR will offer significant advantages, and we believe strongly that for African carriers, we definitely need to look into this territory. Why is that? Look at this. Inside this dotted box, we had 107 different routes, of which 67 had a frequency of less than 3 per week. All right? That's a significant part. Wide bodies, okay. If you switch to 321 XLRs, you can easily increase frequencies, improve connectivity without putting massive number of extra seats in the market. Because that's the fear of the airlines. If they put too much capacity in the market, load factors are too low, yields collapse, and that's what nobody wants. All right? Good. There's plenty of routes like this, like for instance, Malpensa to Zanzibar, Rome to Zanzibar, just to name a couple, Istanbul to the Seychelles, then Luanda to Porto. Well, these are flights that are currently offered, but not with a daily frequency. Switching to the 321 XLR gives you that option. As I said, there's challenges, there's opportunities, and there's a solution. That's the solution, if you ask me. Extended range capability for the 321 XLR, optimized capacity. In other words, we don't put massive amounts of seats in the market when we start flying frequently with the aircraft. We have premium passenger comfort, a real business class seat on board. We have belly cargo capacity. We have single aisle operating costs. That's very important too. So risk to do the flight is pretty low. And then we have operational flexibility, because guess what? We can train pilots on 321 XLRs to also fly 330s and 350s and even 380s and switch in between them as needed. Right. Watch this. It's not inside Southern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, but very close to the region, there's operators engaging in this aircraft type. Saudi Arabian Airlines, Saudia, they just took delivery of the first 321 XLR just a couple of weeks ago. Indigo has it already in operation. And the reason they took these aircraft is to open new routes, long routes, where they don't want to put massive capacity in the market, therefore reduce risk of operation, and to also indeed increase frequencies on a couple of routes, and that's particularly the case for Saudi Arabia. I mentioned these two operators because I expect these aircraft to pop up soon in Africa. All right? Now watch this. Air Seychelles has understood the case. They actually recently got the approval from their cabinet of ministers to move ahead with their long-term fleet planning and to expand internationally. And they are currently working, it's not finalized yet, the way I understood it, latest information available, but they definitely want to engage into a lease agreement with the 321 XLR. And it's a very interesting case because it's a small airline. They don't have a major network, a massive network, but they take this aircraft as an opportunity to indeed increase their network, to increase exposure to different markets, and therefore, in principle, reduce the risk of their operations. John, this is the conclusion. It's done. What is final conclusion of my presentation? First of all, commercial air transport definitely is a dynamic industry. So we need to stay on top of things to act swiftly short term, but we definitely need to think long term and build the flexibility into our fleets to capture the opportunities when they come along. Secondly, the future is all about growth. If there's one thing I want you to remember when walking out of this room, please remember that future is all about growth. And this definitely for sub-Saharan Africa. Launching new routes, well, I don't have to explain that, I think. Improves connectivity, stimulates traffic, as we showed before, and drives socio-economic development. And then last but not least, Airbus aircraft feature indeed unique range capacity capabilities and can definitely enable building profitable routes in your network. From small to very large capacity, from short range to ultra long range, every route has an Airbus aircraft, all right? We are here today and tomorrow. Please come along, have a chat with us. We're definitely ready to talk to you. And voilà. That's the end of my presentation. Let me tell you that right now, the new report that I issued for this year is available on airbus.com. You can scan the QR code if you want to have access to it. And the old versions are also available on the website. You can simply scroll down the page and find them there too. So that is it. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you allow me, we can now do the lucky draw for those people who participated in the game, if we can call it that way. So therefore, I would like to ask Clara to come up to the stage and help me in doing so. All right, ready?
Good morning, everyone.
So, there we go. Lucky draw.
Richard Owens from London Gatwick is the winner.
Is he in the room? All right, good. We have a winner. Please come on stage. All right, very good, thank you.
I'll take this.
All right. So, Richard, here you are. Please take it like this. No, don't touch the engines.
Never.
Nor the tail. All right, very good. There you go. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good luck with it. All right.
Amazing, amazing. I know. Thank you. Well done, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara.
Do this.
During the year, we have multiple catch-ups. It shows me these spreadsheets that mean absolutely nothing to me. But it's just incredible how much work he puts in. You know, he has a day job and puts the work into this, is incredibly passionate about Africa and puts so much work into that report. So make sure you download it. There will be a link as well in the email you'll get this evening, so you can get there if you miss the QR code, or go over to the Airbus stand and the guys will be able to help you. But it's an amazing report to show where the opportunities are.